Yes, you can almost hear the national groan. Tuesday is April 15th. And that, of course, means tax day. The first family already paid up. The White House reports the Obamas earned $481,000 last year, paying $98,000 in income taxes. It's an effective tax rate of about 20%, helped by the fact that the Obamas donated about $59,000 to charity. Also, a first this season, same-sex couples who are married can now file joint federal returns. We want to take a closer look at the complexity of America's tax system. Kenneth C. Davis is the author of the popular Don't Know Much series of history books, and he joins us this morning. Hi, Kenneth.
Good morning. Always a pleasure, although maybe less a pleasure on this subject.
You know, you're the only person to me that could make taxes seem interesting. So let's just start with the history. I was surprised to see, but I think people just forget this starts with the Civil War.
Well, it really starts way before that if we think about the beginning of American history and taxes being tied in with the Revolution, all that resistance to taxes on stamps and sugar back there in the 1770s. So it goes back that far. 200 years, a little over 200 years ago, George Washington actually led troops into the field, the first and only time a president has led troops to put down a tax rebellion, the Whiskey Rebellion in 1794. So we've been fighting about this for a long time. The Civil War is the first income tax. There have always been taxes and tariffs, which are paid on things coming in or going out of the country. So 1862, to pay for the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln signs the first income tax into law. I hate to say it, 3% was the bottom, 5% was the top rate.
Ouch. I want to go back to that day. How did we come up with April 15th, Kenneth?
April 15th it's been a kind of a movable feast since the income tax was reintroduced. It was first on March 1st, then they moved it back to March 15th, and then in 1955, I think, to April 15th. The ostensible reason was that the tax system was getting big, there were more returns to deal with, and the IRS needed more time to deal with those returns. Some people have suggested it's a way for the government to hold on to refunds a month longer, keeping that interest in the Federal Reserve rather than in your bank account.
Right. When did this actually become part of our Constitution, though?
The income tax was declared unconstitutional back in 1894, and they fought for about 15 years, another 15 years before it became part of the Constitution under constitutional amendment in 1913. The world had changed. America was now a global power. It needed a much more reliable, dependable source of income. And after a long, long fight, the income tax was made part of our Constitution.
So there's been resistance to this all along.
It's always been don't tax him, don't tax me, tax the guy behind the tree. I mean, that's the operating principle in Washington. And resistance certainly, especially among those who seemingly are best able to pay. We're having an argument today about taxing people at higher rates and taxing the rich, and this whole income inequality. That was the argument that was still being made back there at the turn of the century, the turn of the 20th century, when even people like Theodore Roosevelt were saying, there's so much wealth in this country and there's so much poverty, the income tax is the only way to do this in a just way.
Well, now that we've disclosed all of the president's tax information, has there ever been a president that didn't cough up the money?
Well, the most notoriously, and it gets forgotten a little bit because of Watergate, but Richard Nixon had some tax trouble. He took deductions that the IRS deemed were a little bit too aggressive, and he ended up paying a very hefty fine and back taxes. And this was all going on while Watergate itself was going on. So
he donated his papers or something, right? Was that it?
It had more to do with development of some property, but yes, the allowance for the contribution of papers to a library, and it was just a little bit of what we call aggressive accounting.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands of dollars he owed, right?
Yes, he did.
Kenneth C. Davis, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
It's always a pleasure.
I hope you get a refund.